This is Techno, a show about innovations that can change lives. We're going to explore the intersection of hardware and humanity, and we're doing it in a unique way. This is a show about science by scientists. Let's check out our team of hardcore nerds. Dr. Crystal Dilworth is a molecular neuroscientist. Tonight, would you give children marijuana? You might if it helps stop this. Seizures leaving kids gasping in pain. Now, we go beyond the controversy and inside the laboratory. It's the first look at the scientific test that may determine if Charlotte's Web is real medicine or not. Lindsay Moran is an ex-CIA operative and analyst. And I'm Phil Torres, I'm an entomologist. Tonight, the amazing bionic arms that help this father do something he hasn't done since his terrible accident. That's our team. Now let's do some science. Hello and welcome to Techno. My name is Phil Torres, and we are joined today by Lindsay Moran and Dr. Crystal Dilworth. Now, this week, you went to investigate medical marijuana, but this marijuana is missing something.
Right, so the plant that we were looking at is missing THC, which is the compound that we think of as being responsible for that high. But I got a chance to go to Colorado and look at a family business that's using marijuana to help treat children with intractable epilepsy.
More than 400,000 children in the U.S. suffer from epileptic seizures. Heather Jackson's son, Zakai, is one of them.
Zakai started having seizures when he was 4 months old. He has a rare, severe form of epilepsy known as Doza syndrome. And by the time he was 5 years old, he had had 500,000 seizures. Don't usually start crying this early, actually. It's an emotional day because he's 16 months seizure-free today, so I'm happy. It's a happy emotion. Now where does it go?
Today, Zakai is talking, walking, and being homeschooled.
Right on the arrows. Nice job.
His mom, Heather Jackson, is convinced it's due to an extract found in this controversial plant.
This is where a lot of the plants are grown. There are approximately 3,200 plants in this greenhouse. Of those, about 80% are Charlotte's Web.
Joel Stanley runs one of the largest marijuana grows in the state of Colorado. It's a family-owned operation. The 5 Stanley brothers went into business in 2008 under the medical marijuana laws passed in the Rocky Mountain state. Jesse Stanley supervises the Denver lab.
The road from there to here is very long, a lot of failures, a lot of successes, but we started growing to help cancer patients. From cancer, it turned into multiple sclerosis, it turned into diabetes, it turned into severe pain, which was mostly THC at the time.
But soon, another less-known plant compound caught the brothers' attention: cannabidiol, or CBD. The little research they could find indicated it too may have potential healing properties. They already had a strain of plant higher in CBD than other growers. They decided to breed a strain that was even higher.
People commonly call it the hippie's disappointment, where you could smoke it all day and you wouldn't get high. But we still grew it, and so much so that it actually hurt our other crops.
Go for a dinosaur ride, Charlie.
It wasn't until the Stanleys met Charlotte Fiji that they became convinced their hippie's disappointment could really help people. Charlotte suffers from Dravet syndrome, an intractable form of epilepsy that emerges in toddlers. Charlotte, just 5 at the time, was having up to 300 grand mal seizures a month. A single seizure often lasting more than 30 minutes.
Joel asked me, he said, hey, there's a woman that wants to treat her daughter with cannabis. I said, you're crazy. That's just gonna end us right up in jail. Like, we were already walking that line. This is just gonna push us over the edge, get us all in orange jumpsuits.
In a healthy human, neurons fire electrical impulses in alternate and controlled firing patterns, sending signals throughout the brain. During an epileptic seizure, neurons are firing electrical impulses all at the same time, almost like an electrical storm.
Once we started it, first day, seizure-free, no seizures. A week went by, still no seizures. So then we knew we were onto something.
Renaming their strain of plant and the CBD extract Charlotte's Web, word spread quickly in the epileptic community. In order to extract CBD at a faster pace to meet demand, the Stanleys moved their extraction process into a Denver bakery they converted into a lab. Chemist Bryson Rast demonstrates the preparation of Charlotte's Web oil. First, the plant is soaked in food-grade alcohol to draw out the cannabinoids.
How long do you soak it for?
The solubility is actually quite high, so we can soak it for as short as maybe a couple of hours or even overnight.
Okay, and then you end up with something that looks like this.
The solution is heated in a rotary evaporator to maximize alcohol evaporation. That liquid is again heated and diluted with olive oil to preserve the CBD and allow for patient dosing.
What other quality control processes do you have?
We use analytical testing on site to determine the potency of the raw oil, and then we test it again afterwards once it's diluted into olive oil, and double check the potency there.
None of the Stanley brothers have a medical degree. Prior to this, several worked in the oil fields of Texas. Jesse Stanley says they've discovered proper patient dosing through trial and error.
What does the high bound of that look like? Like, how would you know this? We're getting a little bit too much. We need to dial this back.
I think it's just a point of finding what works. It's not going to cause any effect, like drowsiness or anything like that. It's strictly their body's going to get rid of it because it's relatively
So you
safe.
don't see any secondary effects? I mean, when I drink 6 cups of coffee, I know that I've had too much caffeine.
The safety profile of marijuana in general is through the roof, but we're also very safe. Because of Charlotte and the other patients, we've been able to collect data to help with dosing for other families and other people that are on the medicine.
Currently, the Stanley brothers are treating nearly 200 patients for epilepsy, but there are more than 2,000 on their waiting list. Mostly epileptics who have exhausted all medications and treatments with no success.
As bad as I feel to have to tell people that they have to come to Colorado and leave everything behind, I feel good that there's a community waiting here for them.
Many on the list come from other states where medical marijuana is illegal.
I think for some people, giving any type of marijuana extract to a child might seem kind of extreme. So what would you say to those naysayers or those skeptics?
I would say, holding your child, praying for them to take their next breath is pretty extreme. Zakiah is completely pharmaceutical free, so he's not on any Western medication right now. He just uses Charlotte's Web, that's all.
I mean, it really seems to me like a very difficult decision to give marijuana to kids. It just doesn't sound right, but when you see the effects...
I mean, it's really hard to argue with the results, right? And a lot of these children, their diagnoses are not good. In some cases, it's fatal, and so this is really a last resort.
This kind of shows where science and empirical research can sometimes fall short of desperate parents. That is, the parents' desperation is outpacing those studies and the research that all they want is something that's going to make the seizure stop.
I think
the issue here is that we know what marijuana does to the adult brain. We've studied this, but we don't often do toxicology studies on children. So here, we don't really know what the potential outcomes are, but it's already being used to treat these diseases.
Now, we've seen these cases with the 2 children, but this research is about to take a big leap.
Yeah, so they just started clinical trials on cannabidiol, and I got a chance to speak to the doctor in charge of the UCSF clinical trial. So we'll see that next.
He was probably like a month or a couple months old baby. He didn't have his tone in his neck. He was unable to hold his neck up.
Doctors think Fahad Afif's son, Ibrahim, has a rare neurodegenerative disease called Batten syndrome. It's so difficult to diagnose. From the first seizure Ibrahim suffered at age 5, it took doctors another 5 years to identify it.
When he first started having his seizures, from that point on, he started regressing, and the doctors couldn't figure out as far as what was wrong with him. And so they kept on treating him for seizures, and regardless of what kind of medication they gave him, it just kept on coming back to where he would have more and more seizures.
The Batten diagnosis was a tremendous blow to this family because the disease is fatal. So when Fahad found a report discussing Charlotte's Web, he made a drastic decision.
I jumped in the car and I drove straight here. I stayed in a hotel and I just kept on calling the Realm of Caring Foundation's number because it was a number that, we needed to call.
The Afifs joined the large community of families who have left their lives in other states in order to get Charlotte's Web treatment under Colorado's medical marijuana laws. They are being called weed refugees.
So the Charlotte's Web plant qualifies as hemp. Right now we're growing it under the medical marijuana program in Colorado, and it's labeled as marijuana. So it's a controlled substance. We can't ship it to a family no matter how much people call and beg and cry for this treatment option.
Currently under federal law, all extracts found in the marijuana plant are lumped together by the DEA as a Schedule I drug. That's even though CBD is non-psychotropic.
Do you plan to take the Charlotte's Web extract into clinical trials?
We do. We feel that that's very important.
But the Stanley brothers face a lot of obstacles on their way to clinical trials, from both the FDA and the DEA. Meanwhile, a UK company, GW Pharmaceuticals, has already been approved for trials at both NYU and UCSF.
I'm testing a new drug. The commercial name is Epidiolex. The drug name is pure cannabidiol. The compound is pure cannabidiol.
After a lengthy process, Dr. Maria Cilio was granted a DEA-approved Schedule I license. In January, she started human clinical trials funded by GW Pharmaceuticals. The roughly 150 patients will all be children diagnosed with intractable epilepsy. This isn't the first study of CBD. It's been researched for more than 50 years, but according to Dr. Cilio, there is still little data verifying its safety.
People tend to see DEA and FDA as major obstacle in using this drug. Honestly, I see them as agency that the first mission is to protect the patient.
Dr. Cilio is testing CBD as a single compound. The pharmacological compound is being made from plants in the UK. This is in contrast to Charlotte's Web, which is a mixture of CBD, low amounts of THC, and other cannabinoids.
We choose to try pure cannabidiol because we thought it was just safer. We wanted to have a product that is consistent, bottle after bottle, so we know how much we are giving so we can evaluate the effect. And also we thought it was the time to do it in a way that was more scientifically sound.
How do you feel about the GW trials that are happening here in the US?
The worst thing that could happen is for that product to be too different from this one. And if it doesn't work, and then the scientific and medical communities come back and say, oh, we already looked at that, so just pass it by. That's the worst thing that can possibly happen.
People tend to see only possible benefits. And I understand, because when you have a child with intractable epilepsy, your hope never ends. But people need to understand that there are risks associated. So we want to test the drug in a scientifically sound way in order to give answers that are more than just excitement and hope.
But answers could take years. Specifically, why CBD seems to work on epileptic seizures. Two leading theories, that CBD modulates calcium influx in neurons. Another, that CBD may reduce swelling in the brain, aren't the focus of the GW trials.
And I have to say that this is also common for several anti-epileptic drugs. We don't know the exact mechanism which a drug controls a seizure.
And with more physicians like Ibrahim Afifs signing off on Charlotte's Web despite the unknowns, families find themselves in a gray area, making decisions based on what seems to be helping their children today.
He's tried lots of different medications and they didn't seem to help. We already had our mind set.
I think it takes that kind of story, something we can all relate to, a sick child getting better. No one wants to deny that. For the last 30 years, activists and hippies have knocked at these government doors Whereas little Charlotte Figi and Zakai,
You did it.
busted them right down.
All right. Now, when you hear a mother talk about the influence of Charlotte's Web on their child, it really makes you think, why not test Charlotte's Web? Why test those individual compounds?
Well, Charlotte's Web is a combination of potentially hundreds of different compounds that could be the active ingredient. Now, we think it's cannabidiol, or CBD, and so what the pharmaceutical company is doing is testing that single compound to see if that really is the active ingredient. That's the best bet. I mean, scientific progress is made by testing single components or single variables at a time, and then making sure you understand the contribution of that single component. And so that's what they're doing.
I love how this story, it kind of started out as, hippie's disappointment. The compound that can't actually get you high is now potentially being used to help really sick kids.
To give you an understanding of the difference between a drug you'd get in your pharmacy and this Charlotte's Web extract, here's a picture that I took in the field of the food-grade alcohol that they use to extract those compounds.
Now, if you guys want to follow more of our stories as we're shooting them in the field, you can follow us on Instagram. Now, guys, take a look at this. These are bionic hands, and in this, Jason Koger is cracking an egg for the first time in 6 years, thanks to these incredible machines. We got to meet the researchers behind it, and it was pretty spectacular, so let's take a look. It's a familiar early morning scene played out in households everywhere. But besides getting his kids dressed and then dropping them off at school, Jason Koger of Owensboro, Kentucky, also must get himself ready. That means making some important decisions about what he's going to be wearing today.
Being a bilateral amputee, you have to use prosthetics. If you're a single-arm amputee, you have the ability to use a real hand to help. It's kind of like a tool for them.
Near San Diego, California, Katie Walker is putting her newest tool to the test. This Paralympic hopeful is trying out a new innovation in prosthetics, customized personally for her specific needs on the field.
The difference is the little wrist unit. The bat attachment pops off.
All right.
And this bat attachment, the bat handle goes right inside of here. So it's supposed to, after I swing, after I follow through, I can just pop it right off.
And then run to
and
first
then start
base.
Running.
And then rotate around. Cool.
For upper limb amputees like Jason and Katie, gone are the days of hook and cable arms. In labs, like this one at Advanced Arm Dynamics outside Dallas, Texas, technicians work alongside occupational therapists to custom design prosthetics driven by patients' dreams.
Just really cool to really have an opportunity to see a patient, see what they need, and actually do what they need. Not just say, well, all we have is this, I'm sorry, here you go. So we get to be really creative.
Now, thanks to myoelectronic advances, the technology does bring patients closer to experiencing the full range of hand mobility most of us take for granted. One of the most sophisticated prosthetics on the market, the iLim Ultra Revolution, allows users to move through a series of grips, even the ability to rotate the thumb. And there's even an app for that.
Let's put these electrodes on you.
What are these electrodes measuring?
So these electrodes are sensing your muscle contracting. You're now bionic.
I'm now bionic. It feels so powerful. So right now, I should be able to control this robotic hand just by moving my muscles.
So did you see that big red spike? So the hand's operating. And now I want you to do is make a closing. Okay, so that was blue.
Inside, the hand is powered by an intricate network of tiny wires attached to 6 motors that allow each finger to articulate separately. 24 advanced grips are now possible, with a total grip force of about 7 pounds. The arm is powered by a battery with an 1800 cycle, or approximately 8 to 10 hour charge. That's been extended by up to 25% in the Ultra Revolution. And what is the most challenging part of this technology?
It's matching the technology with the patient. We want to pair technology with the right type of patient.
How's it going?
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
Katie is working with our team up in Portland. She was born without her hand, and so she's worn prosthetic devices throughout her life, but she's gotten interested in the Paralympics. She wants to track and field.
So this one, how does it different than the one you normally use?
Well, first off, it's much lighter, but it's made of carbon fiber, and the socket, it's really comfortable and sweat-proof. And it's really made for the starting blocks.
Yeah.
So it helps me get down. Here, I can show you.
Ready, Mark? Set. Go. The iLimb technology is currently the closest many patients can come to the dexterity of a real hand. For Jason Koger, the tiniest household tasks are now possible for the first time.
I'm gonna try, I ain't never done it before.
Despite having lost both of his arms in an electrical accident, Jason is willing to try just about anything. Sometimes using his more durable hooks around the farm, other times with his iLimbs. Jason has become sort of a field tester, making him one of the first people in the entire world to have 2 bionic arms.
Jason's one of those rare birds that not only has the motivation and the will to move forward, but he has a great personality. And he's willing to talk to other people about his experience, what he's been through, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Where would you like to see the technology go?
They've told me things that they're wanting to get into single nerves. They're wanting to be able, one nerve to move one finger.
It's called target muscle reinnervation, where a targeted muscle is denervated. Then nerves from the residual limb are harvested and transplanted into that area. If the procedure is successful, sensor electrodes will read the nerves, then send signals directly to the artificial limb, allowing the hand to perform multiple actions simultaneously and intuitively.
It's not like it's, that would be nice, but it's real, and they're starting to implement that in the laboratory setting, and eventually will make it out to a human being.
Until then, Katie Walker is training hard for the 100-meter sprint. She hopes to compete in the 2016 Paralympics in Brazil. And Jason? Well, he's searching for the next thing someone tries to tell him he can't do.
I try to inspire people every day because I think people give up way too easy. I do what I do because I want to do it. I'm not Superman, I'm just Jason Koger.
Now, as much credit as we give to the technology, it's really the people as well. When I met Jason and Katie, I was just so inspired by them. And I mean, they just really pushed the limits. And for instance, here on our Tumblr, you could see that Jason taught me how to shoot a crossbow. And that was pretty cool. I never would have thought that somebody with no arms would be teaching me this. And you can see more of these on our Tumblr if you follow TechKnow.
And it's really a beautiful example of the intersection of hardware and humanity.
Exactly, which really is the theme of us here at TechKnow. We try to find those incredible interfaces that are really pretty inspiring. And we'll be sure to bring you more stories just like that next time on TechKnow.
Dive deep into these stories and go behind the scenes at aljazeera.com/techknow. Follow our expert contributors on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and more.